The true crime genre is a complex and multifaceted topic that can be viewed through various lenses. While some people find the genre fascinating and engaging, others believe that it can be harmful. On one hand, true crime stories can bring attention to important issues such as criminal justice reform, victim advocacy, and societal injustices. These stories can shed light on crimes that might otherwise go unnoticed and can raise awareness of systematic problems in the criminal justice system. On the other hand, the true crime genre can be harmful to one's psyche, particularly if consumed in excessive amounts or in an unhealthy way. It can be disturbing, graphic, and potentially even triggering for some individuals, and it can lead to negative psychological effects such as anxiety, depression, maybe even trauma. Research has shown that exposure to violent or graphic content, such as that found in true crime stories, can lead to desensitization and also kind of like a blunted emotional response to real-life violence. This can have serious consequences, such as decreased empathy and an increased tolerance for violence. Now, the case that we are discussing today is about the tragic murder of Frankie Fitzgerald, committed by none other than his overly horror, true crime-obsessed girlfriend. So how far does love and true crime really go sometimes, guys? I'm Annie Elise. This is 10 to Life. Buckle up, and we're jumping right in. Lee Park is a suburb located in the town of Havant in the county of Hampshire, England. It is situated to the north of the A27 road and is approximately 3 miles north of the city of Portsmouth. Lee Park was built as a post-World War II new town to provide housing for those who were displaced by the war. Today, it is a residential area with a mix of privately owned and council-owned properties. There are several parks and green spaces in Lee Park, including Staunton Country Park, which is a large country estate with gardens, a farm, and a lake. Additionally, there are several smaller parks and recreation areas throughout this suburb, such as Stockheath Common and Warren Park. Shaye Groves is a 27-year-old individual from Lee Park, England, and Shaye has experienced a life that has been marked by several ups and downs. She had a very difficult childhood, enduring significant mistreatment as a young child, which resulted in her struggling with various mental health conditions, such as complex PTSD and bipolar disorder. Furthermore, she would often engage in self-harming behavior. According to one of her childhood friends, Shaye had a distinct personality that set her apart from other children. She frequently wore dark clothing and exhibited manipulative tendencies. Additionally, the friend noted that Shaye had a strong interest in Chucky dolls from an early age. If you don't know who Chucky is, search it. I get it, it's just a movie, it's fictional, but he is creepy. He's like the redhead kid with the overalls that like chases you with a knife. But guys, literally, like as I was just saying that, I remembered I totally did have a Chucky doll myself. I don't know. This is awkward. This is uncomfy. I totally did have a Chucky doll. Anyways, okay, so like let's not shame on the Chucky doll situation because I haven't grown into a killer. Okay, anyways, moving on. At one point, Shaye was romantically involved with a man named Ashley, and together they had a daughter named Arissa. However, the couple eventually separated, and Ashley moved on to a new relationship with whom he has now had more children. Those who are familiar with Shaye see her as an unconventional and independent individual who is known for not conforming to the norms of society. She never really held a job, and it remains unclear how she managed to provide for herself and for her daughter. Interestingly, though, like many of us watching this video today, Shaye has a curious fascination with the darker aspects of human nature, including true crime and serial killers. This peculiar interest has often caught the attention of those around her, who are intrigued by her unorthodox passions. Despite the taboo nature of these interests, Shaye's fascination with them has become a defining aspect of her personality, one that draws both fascination and concern from those who know her. Now, although she has faced many challenges in her life, Shaye's love for her daughter has remained a constant source of joy and comfort. As evidenced by social media photos from 2019, Shaye loves spending time with her daughter, engaging in fun activities such as baking cakes together. It's clear that despite her tumultuous past, Shaye is committed to creating a happy and fulfilling life for herself and her daughter. Or she was committed to creating a happy and fulfilling life for herself and her daughter. According to her friends' reports, Shaye underwent a significant transformation in 2020. She became deeply engrossed in true crime documentaries and books about the criminal underworld, often staying up late into the night researching, watching, studying. She even owned drinking mugs with the faces of notorious serial killers, such as Jeffrey Dahmer, printed on them. In addition, her outward appearance underwent a marked change, with tattoos and piercings now covering areas of her face, neck, and body. Shaye's unique interests were unmistakable in her diverse collection of weapons. She took great pride in her assortment of knives, Viking axes, and a Celtic dagger. Is it Celtic or Celtic? I think it's Celtic. Moreover, she had a striking coffin-shaped bookshelf in one of her rooms. Shaye's bedroom wall was adorned with framed photographs of some of the most notorious murderers in history, including infamous individuals such as Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and Rose West. Now, pause quickly. We all are fascinated with true crime. Hi, that's why we're here, that's why we're talking, that's why I'm making this video, that's why you're watching it. I get we all might have, the occasional coffee mug with a serial killer slogan or, perhaps a book about something. When you have framed photos of notorious killers on your bedroom wall, I think it's time for you to turn the true crime off, my friend. It's time to just shut this down. I appreciate the support. I appreciate the view, but it's time to have some self-awareness and say, why do I have a framed photo of Ted Bundy on my wall? This might be getting a little uncomfy, a little weird. And that's the path that Shaye was going. Shaye and her daughter lived with Shaye's childhood friend Lauren White and Lauren's younger daughter. Although Shaye was fascinated with true crime, it was not her only obsession. She was also obsessed with exploring and indulging in unconventional sexual preferences, and had a particular infatuation with a man named Frankie Fitzgerald, who she met at a local pub. Her passion for Frankie was strong and all-consuming, taking up a significant portion of her thoughts and time. Now, who is this Frankie Fitzgerald? Frankie Fitzgerald is a 25-year-old resident of Portsmouth, and he was the object of Shaye's obsessive devotion. He was the youngest among his 4 siblings. Those close to him describe him as a kind, loving guy with a great sense of humor. Frankie and his ex-partner Charlene had 2 beautiful children together, a daughter and a son. His ability to diffuse tension with humor was also well known among his family and friends, making him someone who was almost impossible to argue with. Despite the challenges that he faced in his personal life, Frankie remained a beloved and respected figure among those who knew him. Now, Frankie and Shaye had a pretty tumultuous relationship from the beginning, dating on and off for 6 months. However, they shared a significant mutual interest in exploring this unconventional sexual preference, particularly kink. It was bondage, domination, submission. These were some of their shared interests. They also indulged in the occasional use of recreational Mary Jane and even the white powder together. Although they were lonely individuals, they were drawn to each other because they were so equally matched in their particular genre of interest. During their 6-month relationship, they continually pushed the limits of their sexual appetites, using decorative knives with depictions of film villains such as Chucky, Jigsaw, and even Pennywise for their knife play. A little weird. Personally, I'm not trying to kink shame anybody. Everybody's entitled to do what they want, but this is getting a little uncomfy. As their preferences became increasingly wild and dangerous, the line between fantasy and reality was tragically blurred. It appears that Shaye's fascination with pain may have extended beyond the confines of the bedroom. According to her friends, she frequently talked about wanting to hurt Frankie, particularly when they were going through one of their many breakups. In fact, there were occasions when they did break up and Shaye would confide in her friends about her desire to cause him harm. At one point, the couple split up after Frankie accidentally called Shaye by his ex-girlfriend's name. Big no-no. Shaye's reaction was to text one of her friends saying, "I want to effing stab him." According to court documents, Shaye had provided written consent to Frankie to engage in sexual intercourse to wake her up, starting from March 22nd until further notice. It's kind of a weird agreement to make, but okay. It was alleged that Shaye's fixation with Frankie's sexual performance, coupled with the hazardous combination of drug and alcohol use, could have contributed to the disturbing events that happened next. On a Sunday morning in July of 2022, at approximately 5 a.m., Shaye sent a text message to her best friend Vicky, informing her that she and Frankie had officially ended their relationship. Shaye disclosed that he had stormed out of her house and that the two of them had called it quits. Shortly after the text message, Shaye initiated a FaceTime conversation with Vicky, during which she appeared to be in good spirits and fine overall. Vicky reported that the two were simply chatting away and that she had no indication that anything horrible had occurred. During their FaceTime conversation, the atmosphere between Shaye and Vicky shifted abruptly. Shaye went upstairs and informed Vicky that she had something significant to show her. However, before revealing what it was, Shaye made Vicky promise not to divulge the information to anyone. It was then that Shaye displayed the lifeless body of Frankie and declared, "I've done him." Now, at first, Vicky thought that Shaye was joking, given her peculiar and often dark sense of humor. However, as she examined the condition of Frankie's body, Vicky soon realized that this was not a joke at all, but a horrifying reality. Frankie's lifeless body was discovered lying on top of several trash bags and covered with a duvet. During the FaceTime conversation, Shaye deliberately placed her phone close to Frankie's body to reveal a severe gash on his throat. Vicky was understandably perplexed by Shaye's actions and asked her for an explanation. She recounted that she and Frankie had a very heated argument the previous night over one of her ex-partners, and that they went to bed angry. Then in the middle of the night, she had gone through his phone and discovered messages exchanged between him and a 13-year-old girl, and that's when she apparently lost it. While disclosing this to Vicky, Shaye proceeded to clean up the blood without showing any sign of panic, and shockingly, even appeared to be enjoying the situation. Her bizarre behavior was evidenced by her giggling throughout the entire conversation, cleaning up, laughing about it, telling the story, showing Frankie's body, laughing, and being giddy during it. Very unsettling, and a huge red flag. In an attempt to gather as much information as possible, Vicky remained on the phone with Shaye. Concerned about what Shaye planned to do with the body, Vicky posed the question. Shaye responded that she intended to clean up and bury Frankie in the backyard, hoping that people would just assume that he had run off and taken his own life due to his severe depression and his thoughts of taking his own life that he had apparently struggled in the past. In fact, Shaye had already begun constructing this narrative. She started constructing this narrative when she initially texted Vicky at 5 a.m., informing her that Frankie had run away. Shaye admitted to Vicky that the reason that she had sent the text was to establish an electronic alibi for herself and cover up any suspicions about Frankie's disappearance. Shaye was trying to make Vicky believe that she wasn't this evil piece of crap garbage woman, and even tried to convince Vicky that Frankie had physically assaulted her by even sending Vicky 3 video clips where it appeared that Frankie was assaulting Shaye. After disclosing the harrowing details to Vicky, Shaye ended the conversation by asking her friend, "We're still friends, aren't we?" Vicky, alarmed and disturbed by this conversation, promptly contacted the authorities. When they arrived on the scene around 8 a.m., they immediately noticed a pungent odor of bleach, and this was just seeping through the doorway. Shortly after, Shaye, clad in a pink robe with a cigarette in hand, opened the door.
What's going on?
Sorry, the dogs.
No. Don't close the door. What's going on? What's going on?
With what?
Are you Shaye?
I am Shaye.
Right. I had some kind of strange, interesting call about somebody having had their throat slit.
Okay.
So what's going on here?
No, that's
dog, is it?
my dogs, yeah.
You're under arrest on suspicion of murder. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given evidence. The necessity for your arrest is for a prompt and effective investigation. Okay.
Shaye initially told the officers, "I don't know what the F happened. He's in my room. It's a mess. It really is a mess. I took somebody's life. The knife I used is in the sink. The cut on his neck is pretty brutal. When I put it in his neck, he rolled over." Subsequent to the incident, a post-mortem examination was conducted, which revealed the grim extent of the brutality inflicted upon Frankie. The examination revealed that he had been stabbed 17 times to the anterior chest and twice to the other chest areas, also 3 times to the neck. These wounds resulted in multiple punctures to his heart and lungs, causing catastrophic blood loss. Additionally, Shaye had severed Frankie's left internal jugular vein. When law enforcement officials arrived at the scene, Shaye provided them with an initial statement claiming that Frankie had attempted to harm her and that she acted in self-defense. Nevertheless, after discovering Frankie's lifeless body, both Shaye and her roommate and close childhood friend Lauren were both taken into custody on suspicion of murder, because Lauren, of course, lived with her. Now, Lauren was charged with failing to comply with the Section 49 notice to disclose the key to protected information, which essentially meant that she had refused to provide investigators with the PIN code to her cell phone. Despite being released on bail, Lauren was scheduled to face trial for those charges against her. However, all of the charges against Lauren were ultimately dismissed. The investigative team left no stone unturned as they meticulously combed through every inch of the crime scene. They even enlisted the help of search dogs and collected surveillance footage from nearby residents in their quest for evidence. On the following Wednesday after the murder, Shaye found herself standing before a magistrate who formally charged her with the murder of Frankie. The magistrate then ordered Shaye to appear in Winchester Crown Court the next day. The sudden turn of events shocked the community, as 2 best friends and roommates, who were also both single mothers, were now embroiled in a murder investigation, where a ritual dagger knife was used to stab this woman's boyfriend 22 times and slit his throat. The case promised to be complex and emotionally taxing, as prosecutors would have to present compelling evidence to support the murder charge against Shaye. Many questions were still left unanswered, and it was uncertain how the criminal justice system would unfold this tragic event. At the start of January 2023, this year, Shaye Groves' trial commenced. During the court proceedings, prosecutor Stephen Perrion asserted that Shaye, through reading and watching these murder documentaries, had become so well-versed in crime scene management and fabricating false stories and even establishing deceptive alibis. During the trial, the prosecution painted a picture of Shaye as a jealous and possessive girlfriend who killed her boyfriend for cheating on her and made him pay for it. They presented even more evidence that revealed how gruesome this crime really was and the details of her crime, such as the fact that she video called Vicky just hours after killing Frankie, showing his body wrapped in that duvet. During the trial, it was also revealed that Shaye had sent other videos of herself with this deceased man, her boyfriend, to her best friend Vicky. The prosecution further presented evidence of how she fabricated an alibi by sending messages to a friend while trying to clean up the crime scene. The court also learned that she had set up a video camera in her bedroom and had edited video clips to make it appear as though Frankie was assaulting her. These revelations further established the extent of Shaye's depravity and manipulation. However, the prosecution was able to obtain the original footage, which showed that the couple's relationship was consensual. Additionally, Vicky testified that Shaye had used similar tactics to threaten previous boyfriends. She would gather things to hold over their heads and use it as blackmail in the future on them. Vicky's testimony also revealed Shaye's history of violence, as she recounted an incident where Shaye attacked her roommate Lauren, the one who wouldn't give her PIN and who was arrested in the beginning as well. She attacked her with a pair of nail clippers, causing her to bleed. Shaye had only stopped after realizing what she had done. Mobile phone analysis showed that while Frankie's body was in her bedroom, Shaye sent messages to another man, inviting him to her home in a calculated attempt to create an alibi and deflect suspicion from herself. Maybe trying to paint him as the guilty one? When questioned about her actions later, Shaye tried to excuse her horrific crime by claiming that she had discovered Frankie messaging that 13-year-old girl on social media. However, investigators discovered that the girl he was messaging was actually 17 years old, and that Frankie had blocked her as soon as she claimed that she was underage. In closing arguments, the prosecution argued that the evidence presented during the trial left no doubt that Shaye had committed a deliberate and heinous act of murder. She had meticulously planned and executed the crime, and had shown a complete disregard for the value of human life. Her attempts to create a false narrative and alibi were calculated, and demonstrated a lack of empathy for her victim and his loved ones. According to Shaye's testimony in court, she claimed that her actions toward Frankie were taken in self-defense. She explained that after discovering those messages between Frankie and someone that she believed to be 13 years old, she became enraged and woke him up from his sleep. She then threatened to release videos online that allegedly showed his previous assault against her. Shaye said, "It tipped me over the edge. At that point, I called him some really horrible things, including a and she said that Frankie then became really angry and his demeanor changed. She continued by saying you could see in his eyes. He grabbed me by the throat and forcefully pushed my head toward the headboard. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even scream. My eyes were blurry. I realized he wasn't going to let go and I feared for my life." She told the court that she grabbed the nearest object she could and struck him in the throat. She told the court that she mistakenly hit him in the neck with that dagger, having meant to grab a money box beside her bed. After hitting him in the neck with the dagger, he fell back and slid slowly to the floor, clutching at his throat. She stated that he became totally still, and that the only thing that was moving was the blood bubbling out of his neck. So in an attempt to silence him, she first tried to put her hand over the bubbling blood, but claimed that it didn't work. She claimed that's when she stabbed him through the heart. During her testimony, she admitted to panicking after the incident and calling her daughter's father, Ashley Wingham, for advice. He reportedly told her to wrap Frankie's body in plastic and clean the walls, which she did. She then enlisted the help of her roommate Lauren to assist her in that cleanup. She and Lauren then placed the trash bags and shopping bags beneath his body and placed a pillow over his face. Midway through attempting to clean up the room, she stopped and decided to end her life because she was starting to realize how serious this actually was. Now, let me just unpack that for a second. First of all, she called the father of her child, and he gave her help. Didn't call the police, didn't say, "What have you done?" Didn't say, "Turn yourself in," didn't suggest trying to save him or do any sort of life-saving measures. No, he told her how to clean up. Then she also called her roommate over and said, "What do we do?" And they started gathering trash bags. And then she finally realizes how serious this all is. What's going on? Get better friends. You all are responsible, in my opinion. Now, Shaye admitted that in that phone call to her friend Vicky, shortly after the attack, she lied and claimed that Frankie was asleep when she stabbed him. She said, "I didn't want anyone to be right about him and to say I told you so. So the man is dead, and I didn't want to tarnish his reputation." She claimed that before she had a chance to say goodbye to her daughter and take her own life, Vicky had called the police and she was arrested. Shaye had told the court that she had been drinking alcohol and taken 2 small lines of the white powder on the night of Frankie's death. And according to Shaye's testimony, she had initially made jokes with friends about Frankie's supposed violent behavior in bed, but those jokes later became a reality. But the prosecution presented threatening text messages from Frankie to Shaye in which he warned her of the consequences if he ever caught her cheating. Now, in these messages, he had threatened to hang her. Shaye also revealed to her friends that Frankie would sometimes go too far during their sexual encounters and would choke her too hard. This was displayed by the defense when they showed video footage of one of the recorded sexual encounters that they had, and it appeared that he was assaulting her. And then after they were done, he even said, "That was a bit huh?" Weird thing to say. Shaye stated that she thought he said that because he had just realized what he had done, which was actually assaulting her from her back, in her back cavity. They also showed footage of Frankie and Shaye where he was just holding her and spanking her and Shaye was screaming. So it definitely did not look good. However, with their history of participating in consensual BDSM activities, we don't truly know the context of these videos or what was really happening. There was absolutely nothing in Frankie's past that had come out that indicates that he was this type of person. And remember Vicky, her best friend, did say that Shaye had intentionally installed these cameras in her bedroom and that she had BDSM-type intercourse with her boyfriends, then would clip the worst parts of it to hold it over their heads in the future as blackmail to get them to do whatever she wanted. In one circumstance, she even threatened an old boyfriend that she would show his new girlfriend this footage if he didn't give her a ride somewhere. So I think that we should kind of just take what Shaye says with a grain of salt. According to Vicky's testimony in court, despite the defense's claim that Frankie was abusive, she believed that Frankie only became rough or went too far with Shaye during their intimate moments. Vicky believed that the couple had agreed to engage in consensual rough behavior behind closed doors based on Shaye's comments about it, and that she appeared to enjoy it. She also told the court that Frankie had developed a drug habit and would often get really aggressive when he was high. Then when asked about her choice of room decorations and the framed killers on the wall and the coffin bookcase, she said that she thought that they looked cool and wanted to shock people and that they were from an artist on Etsy. She explained that they aren't actual photos of the serial killers, but art. Further, she told the court that she was a pagan, I hope I'm saying that right, and that dagger that she used to stab Frankie was intended for her rituals, adding that it strengthened spiritual connections. The prosecution raised valid questions for the jurors to consider during deliberations. If Shaye's actions were truly in self-defense, why did she invite another man into her home while Frankie's body was still laying in her room? Why did she try to create an elaborate alibi and go to great lengths to clean up the crime scene? These actions appear to contradict her claim of self-defense and suggest a premeditated murder and a cover-up. They pointed out the fact that she was true crime obsessed and understood how to create a false narrative through all of the documentaries that she's watched. They even quoted her when she said, "I know that no alibi is airtight and that no murder is perfect and that the closest you can get is by injecting somebody by air." After about a month of trial, the jury was set to deliberate, and after 18 hours, they came back with their verdict. Shaye, dressed in a jacket with a pentagram on the back, smiled as she was found guilty of murder. This was on February 17th, 2023. Which coincidentally enough was the same court that found one of Shaye's idols, Rose West, guilty of her heinous crimes. The verdict from the 11 jurors, 7 women and 4 men, was unanimous. In contrast, she showed no emotion, and 5 days later, she was sentenced by the court to life in prison with a minimum term of 23 years. A statement released by Frankie's family said, "Frankie was a loving father, brother, and son. He was the light of our lives, and we will miss his kindness, his happy smile, and the fun person that he was. Frankie had a large amount of friends and family, and this news has left us all devastated." In his sentencing remarks, Mr. Justice Kerr told Shaye, "You have robbed Frankie's family and loved ones of their son and their brother and his 2 children of their father." He added that Shaye had ended Frankie's life in his mid-20s and that she had been blighted of the lives of his family for decades to come. However, he described the murder as a crime of passion, adding that Shaye was not a cold-blooded murderer, saying this was a crime of passion. You loved the man you killed, and you killed the man you loved. You are not a cold-blooded murderer. A crime of passion is not committed in cold blood. I don't know if I agree with that necessarily. After the sentence was passed, members of the press assembled outside of the court to hear a statement by Detective Chief Inspector Rod Kenny.
My name's Rod Kenny and I'm Detective Chief Inspector with Hampshire and Isle of Wight Police, and I'm here to read a brief statement after sentencing today. Shaye Groves was responsible for the shocking and sustained attack which tragically resulted in Frankie's death. We are pleased with the jury's verdict, and the sentence will ensure that Groves spends a significant period of time in prison for what she has done. Nothing can fill the void that has been left in the lives of those who knew Frankie, and our thoughts remain with his family, friends and loved ones. I would like to praise their courage and hope that this sentence will in some way deliver the justice they deserve. We will do everything we can to investigate and prosecute those responsible for these horrific crimes. The details disclosed in court were distressing for all to hear, and I am immensely proud of the tireless work of the local investigation teams, detectives, specialist teams, and our colleagues at the Crown Prosecution Service. in all its forms will not be tolerated and remains a priority for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Constabulary. I would urge anyone who may be a victim of these crimes to come forward and to tell the police. You will be listened to, believed, and supported. Thank you.
Less than an hour after receiving her life sentence, Shaye Groves was transported from Winchester Crown Court to a prison to then start the next 23 years of her life behind bars. It's difficult to say definitively whether Shaye's obsession with true crime contributed to the crime that she committed against Frankie Fitzgerald. While it is possible that her fascination with this genre influenced her behavior and decision-making, there is no clear evidence linking the two. It's also worth noting that many people have an interest in true crime without ever committing a violent act. Additionally, Shaye's actions seem to have been motivated by a complex set of factors, including her history with Frankie, their involvement in BDSM activities, and her belief that he had been involved in inappropriate messaging with a minor. Overall, it's likely that Shaye's actions were the result of a combination of factors, and it's difficult to isolate any one influence as the sole cause of her behavior. So I'm interested to hear what you guys think about this one. Do you think she's a cold-blooded murderer, or was it just a crime of passion, as the judge said? Do you think that she was influenced by so much true crime that she consumed over the past few years? Or was this something that just unleashed in her randomly? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. This is a weird one, guys, and I know you're watching true crime. I know you're a true crime, fan, or I know you're interested in true crime like me, but please, if you feel like you're starting to tilt on the scales of like, oh, I might be getting dangerous or I might be too interested in doing something violent, turn YouTube off, turn Netflix off, turn the documentaries off, and get help. Just a PSA. Just a PSA. Only consume if you can truly consume it without, going off the rails. I don't know what else to say. But I did have that Chucky doll when I was little, which maybe I need to take some self-inventory there. That's a little weird. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in today on this case. I know it was a very weird one and kind of hits close to home for all of us, but I'm interested to know your thoughts. So leave them